I think, first of all, welcome everybody. This is the beginning of our project to renovate Crawford Park. And I'm not going to speak long here. I'll say additional words inside when the meeting starts because everybody's going to be very cold. The state of this project is being brought about in part because of funds that we received from the state of New York, or at least a grant has been given to us as a result of an application made by the previous Rye Town Council. And we have them to thank for this. I'll get more into that later. Assemblyman Otis is here. George Latimer was not able to make it, but I think that was part of the impetus for getting this project going. This is our sign, and I'd like the elected officials from the current council to come up, and also our consultants, if they would, because their names are on the sign. And Billy? Tony, why don't you take that other side?
Or front back?
I would say back.
Throw it to the back.
Pull it to the back.
Pull it to the back.
Pull it to the back.
Just don't pull it in opposite direction. Just pull it down.
So are you ready, Gary?
We're ready. 1, 2, 3, go! As you can see, this is actually a nice sign, and it was prepared by one of our local sign makers in Portchester, and they did a really great job. You see the members of the council here, and also friends of Crawford Park, Laura Klein and Teresa Stevens. Where are they? Right here, Laura, Teresa. What it is today and what it's going to be in the future. And our project consultants, Arcanist Architecture, Gary Gianfrancisco, our architect. Our being here landscape architects for the Sensory Garden, Denisha. Where's Denisha? Denisha. And Miss Al is here. Where's Al?
That's right next to you.
Al has designed and built a playground, or hasn't built it yet. He's going to build it. And also we've had been consulted with, because the driving force in this has been to make the park and all of its features handicap accessible. And Linda Cook of Cerebral Palsy of Westchester, I don't think she's here today, but Mel Taubman of Westchester Disabled on the Move right over there. Consulted with us because we wanted to do this right, and that's why we brought as many interests together as we could. And this is just the beginning. We'll get more into it inside. This is just the first step. The entire community needs to be involved in this project, because this is the only piece of land that's actually owned by the town of Rye, managed by the town of Rye, and is open to all the residents of the town, Rybrook, Portchester, and Rhinebeck. And everybody has an interest in this. And we're going to do the best job that we can. A great project. We're going to hopefully keep it at a reasonable cost for the size of this project and get it done on time. And I know you're not going to believe this, but our goal is to complete the entire project, including the mansion, by the end of the year. So that is our goal. And if you've noticed, we've already started on the pavilion. Gary was the architect for the pavilion. It's already under construction. We hope that it will be ready by June 1st, and followed by the playground and the sensory garden. So that's the outline. We'll speak more about it inside. Does anybody else wish to speak, or do you want to go in? Let's go in. Okay. Thank you all very much.
until I can't stand it.
Welcome everybody to the March 23rd, 2017 meeting of the Rye Town Council. Everybody please rise. How about Legislator Gelfarb leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. Heavenly Father, bless this assemblage. Grant us the wisdom to make our every decision fair-minded and in the best interest for all its residents. I kindly ask everyone to please have a moment of silence for the victims of the attack in London. And on a happier note, happy birthday, Mr. Binder.
Roll call.
Here.
Councilperson Anthony Baxter.
Here.
Councilperson William Villanova.
Here.
And Supervisor Jerry Williams.
The first item tonight, as everybody is aware, is our presentation regarding the Crawford Park Improvement Project. I kind of a few remarks that I set outside. This project has been a long time in the making. This building, for example, was built in, I believe, the record show 1902, and was deeded with a grant from Edna Crawford in her will to the town of Rye in 1975. There hasn't been a lot of work done on the mansion itself in many years. The previous town board, Billy and Tom, who were both on it, started forward with a plan to do work on this mansion. And I guess it started with an estimate of an analysis of the work that needed to be done, and an estimate of what the possible cost was several years ago. And I want to give credit to that, especially to former Councilman Bob Mayors. Bob, you're here. I think Bob really set the ball rolling along with Tommy, and the council started to think about getting things done. Towards the end of 2015, somebody, and I don't know who that was, had the idea of applying for a grant to the state for improvements to make the building handicap accessible. And the grant was issued shortly after I took office. And we started forward with planning to build on the plans that were submitted to the state. The plans, the original plans and the mansion plans included renovating the pavilion, making the bathrooms there handicap accessible, the mansion, of course, making the playground handicap accessible, and installing what is called a sensory garden for those people also with disabilities. And as we looked at what work was applied for, we came to the realization that in order to do the job right, the work had to be expanded somewhat. And I'm going to let each of the 4 parts of this improvement plan come forward and say what it's all about. And doing. And we'll start with Gary. I think most people are interested in the mansion renovations. The handicap accessible improvements did not include windows and doors, did not include plumbing, other than the handicap accessibility. The handicap accessible bathrooms. Did not necessarily include rewiring. HVAC systems. But as I mentioned, this building is over 100 years old. And without making any expansion whatsoever, a lot of work is required. The will of Edmund Crawford provides that we can knock this building down, but we can't build another one. So this is the only building we have, and this park is the jewel of the town of Rye, and we as custodians, I think, have an obligation to go forward and maintain it to the best of our ability for our children and our grandchildren. And with that said, Mr. Gianfrancesco.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Welcome all this evening, council members and the public. Gary Gianfrancesco from Arconics Architecture, PC. We're the architects and planners working on the renovation of the Crawford Mansion. Our firm, Arconics Architecture, was started 30 years ago. We remain in Rye Brook, where we started for the duration of our tenure. We're commercial architects with an emphasis on public architecture. We have done a significant amount of work for the Village of Portchester, the Village of Portchester Senior Center, Village of Portchester Rooms, many firehouses. We've done similar work for the town of Mamaroneck Senior Center, Larchmont Town Hall. We've done work for the Village of Rye Brook and the town of Harrison. So we're fairly well versed. We know the drill. We've spent a lot of time in the structure over the course of the last year and a half, 2 years, and we feel as if we have a good sense as to what it's going to take to make this a public facility for all of the residents of Portchester, Rye Brook, and Rye Neck. As the supervisor has alluded to, the structure was built in 1902, and not much has been done to it, which in a lot of respects is not a bad thing, because there's a high level of integrity both on the interior and the exterior, which we have to, as a jumping off point, and we intend to be respectful of the architecture and the design intent of the building when it was originally built. Plans are in the early stages. As the supervisor has alluded to, we have focused on ADA and handicap accessibility. That has been the start of our planning work. Along with that is getting people in and out of the building, an elevator which will now make all 3 floors of the structure usable, thereby increasing the participation of people being able to use the space.
Excuse me, Gary, 1 second. I hate to interrupt you, but I'm still getting used to being an elected official, and there are a lot of dignitaries in this audience that I neglected to introduce, and I apologize for that. Is Steve Otis still here, or did he go? Steve is helpful. Our assemblyman was extremely helpful in getting the grant, along with Senator George Latimer, for the community development block grants. I mentioned David Gelfard here. He's our current county legislator. David, stand up a sec. And he's a former town councilman. We also have, I see former Reverend Trustee Rich Busen back there. I know Fritz Palazzo. This is the newly elected mayor of Portchester, and he's going to be sitting beside me on the Wright Town Park Commission beginning April 1st. Did I miss any other elected officials? No? Oh, that's good. And I know we have a lot of non-profits here, and we're going to introduce you after Gary's presentation on the mansion.
Thank you, Mr. Silver. So I started to speak in terms of how this project was initiated. It had to do with handicap accessibility and ADA compliance, getting people into the building and then moving them vertically. The next part of our work will be to maintain and remove obstructions on the interior to maintain interior accessibility. So now that we've gotten people into the building and we can move them around, now we have to protect them. One of the big things restricting the second floor usage is that there needs to be a dedicated second means of egress, another stair, confined stair that will bring people from that floor directly to the exterior. That work has begun to be incorporated into the building. We will need to sprinkle this building. We will need to provide a fire alarm, smoke and fire alarm system. And we will also have to ensure the structural integrity when we start to bring people to the second floor, that these floors are capable of supporting the loads and the movement of people. So now we've gotten people in and out of the building. We've protected them. Now we have to deal with the comfort. That's the next phase of the work that we're going to be dealing with. In an energy efficient fashion, we will explore an HVAC system, LED lighting. We are prepared to insulate all the exterior walls, and we are going to, as the supervisor said, replace all of the windows and doors with insulated sash that are respectful of the architecture of that era. So those are the things we've begun to look at and incorporate into the drawings, and we are at the very beginning of this process because now we need, with the council's direction, the public's input to define the utilization of the interior spaces on all floors, and that is the next phase of where we're headed to. This is an exciting project in my own backyard, and I couldn't be more pleased to be a part of it. And I thank you for the opportunity, and I can assure you, in the end, all will be pleased. As you may have noticed, the pavilion renovation is underway. That is another project that began with the concept of accessibility, renovating the toilets, which have been expanded, and providing for ADA accessibility. We have male, female, and neutral gender toilet rooms. We are also putting a seasonal warming pantry so that the pavilion can be utilized without having to use the kitchen that's in this structure. It'll make for a more productive and controlled atmosphere. We are, in addition to that, we are doing some site improvements around the structure, again, to allow for accessibility around both sides. As you're familiar with the structure, the westerly side of it, the grade drops off significantly. We intend to build that up with pavers and drywall retaining walls and railings so that you can walk all around the structure. There will be a flight of stairs going down towards the fields. And again, just to start to tie all of these elements together, there will be access from the pavilion to this structure, and some of the other speakers can speak to the getting to the sensory garden and the playground, which the intent is to have a master plan here and tie everything together. And that's the first phase of work. We've gotten off to a great start with it, and the expectation is that the bathroom facilities will be ready for Rye Brook Day come June 14th.
17.
17th. I only told the contractor.
That's what I said publicly outside.
Do you want me to take people through or just?
Well, just briefly, Gary,
So-
some of the major highlights.
Right, so some of the major highlights are a men's handicap accessible toilet, which is to be in the room that's basically stored with chairs right now. The integrity of most of the rooms is to remain intact. The handicap accessible entrances to the building will be out the oval room. That will be our main handicap accessible entrance. That open terrace had at one time a pergola structure similar to what you see over here. We are going to restore that and make this the kind of entrance that it was. The rear handicap access is out the back here. Our elevator is to propose to be installed opposite the women's room. In the corridor, we're going to be opening up some of the spaces there, and that will be the entrance to the elevator. So if you were to coming off the main terrace, the elevator would be available to you right there. The second means of egress, that confined stair, will basically come down the back of the kitchen wall. Upstairs, again, we're maintaining the integrity of most of the existing rooms. I think you can pretty well tell that from the plan. The largest amount of work is going to be isolated to the area above the kitchen. That is an area, if you ever go up on the second floor, there's a change in elevation. We will be basically taking that floor out and elevating the floor level so we're all on one floor level. The elevator would come up in that hallway. These are the existing spaces. This will be the new space that we are creating above the kitchen. The basement will be accessible with our elevator. It's a 3-stop elevator. We have not done any plans relative to programming of that space. However, it is an area now that is more useful for storing tables and chairs and all of the things that support this structure, as well as the new mechanical systems. I alluded to these are the existing elevations. The look will be maintained. All new windows and doors throughout on all elevations, including the sunroom, which if you've ever been here in January, you're brisk. The rear entrance and the rear facade. And then just so you can envision how we are tucking an elevator into this structure, it was very important that we didn't affect the aesthetics from the outside of the building, which is, again, part and parcel with why the elevator is being installed down at that end. It's central and just gets tucked in under the existing roof line. It's a specialized elevator. It's a full-size elevator that you would find in any public building.
Thank you. We'll entertain comments from anybody who wishes to speak about the project after the last presentation. Let's go next. Al?
Good evening, everyone, public, council members. I'm Al Corsetti from Pat Corsetti Incorporated. We are a local general contracting company located in Mamaroneck, New York. We specialize in commercial playground construction. Over the past 30 or so years, we've been involved and successfully completed many playgrounds and complete park renovations in the tri-state area. some of our clients have been the state of New York, city of New York, as well as most municipalities in Westchester County, and also including the county of Westchester. Through a collaboration with the Playground Committee of Rye Town, we formulated a design for a completely accessible and totally inclusive playground for children of all abilities.
Just one thing.
Sure.
You said all abilities.
All
I think
abilities.
we need to stress, this is not just a playground for children without normal abilities. This is a playground for children with normal abilities so that they can play together. And this was very important to us to do that, and we insisted on that, especially after consultation with members of the community that advocates for the disabled. Thank you.
It is designed for children of all abilities, and there are features included in this which include activities for children anywhere from 2 years old to 12 years old. It is going to be, and it's a little more visible on the renderings, which I didn't bring all of them up. This will be a completely flush, flat area bounded by concrete curbing. There is a unitary poured rubber surfacing underneath all of the equipment. The main structure is ramped and wheelchair accessible, and is generally nature themed. We've done that again in connection with the Playground Committee. We worked to try to give a natural look to this, not so flamboyant to it, but you say something that blends in with the natural environment. And in connection with the sensory garden and the improvement of the mansion, there will be a completely handicapped accessible route to the playground that will allow children of all abilities to use it. A few of the features we have some natural-looking log and crawl through tunnels. This is mostly geared for the young. The 2 to 5-year-old age group. There are ground level activities. There's a seesaw. There's a merry-go-round. This is a merry-go-round again that can be used from children of all abilities. It can be powered either with children pushing it with their feet, or they can sit there and there's a wheel in the middle that they can turn with their hands and their upper body. There are sensory panels that are accessed from ground level as well as from the ramps. This allows some of the younger children and children who aren't so mobile to engage in a number of different activities with all the other children here. We have a 4-bay swing set, as well as a number of other features. There are musical instruments included, which are sort of like a drum set that kids can play with.
Or bang on.
And bang on, neighbors will and basically, in a nutshell, that's the playground.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
evening. My name is Denisha Williams. I'm the principal of Being Here Landscape Architecture. We are very pleased to be consultants to the town and to the residents of Crawford Park on this project. It's really a tremendous honor and a project that really is very, very near and dear to our heart. We are based in Manhattan, but don't hold it against us, please. I come from a much smaller place than this, actually. And it's good to be working with smaller communities. We work regionally, but a lot of our work is in the city. And it's so wonderful to work with people where we can just work really face to face and sit down and make decisions. And I'd like to particularly thank Supervisor Zuckerman and Councilman Nardi, who's been indispensable with local knowledge and decision making, and also Debbie Reisner, and Laura and Teresa with the Friends have been just terrific to work with. Also our fellow consultants, Arconics and Pete Corsetti, we're all very committed to coordinating well so that all of the projects, all of the different facets of this project are very well integrated and flows seamlessly. So our portion of the project is kind of multifaceted. We have the boards here, and for those of you that can see the screen, we also have, you might be able to see the screen a little bit better. I know it's a little difficult from that far corner, but so what we are charged with doing is siting the handicap accessible parking, which is located, this is just to the north of the mansion here, where the existing parking now is located. We'll be able to get in 3 spaces, and I have to say Supervisor Zuckerman has particularly pushed the issue of let's get in as many spaces as we possibly can here, and I think definitely rightly so. We're also designing this accessible entrance, which is just linking up to the terrace just to the north here. And then also, right now there is no accessible route to the playground. And of course, if it's going to be an accessible playground, it needs to have an accessible route. So there will be a fully accessible route all the way from the parking area to the sensory garden and playground. And then also along the way, I'll zoom in on all of these details, but we also, in the process of putting the project, considering what the scope items needed to be, we realized that there definitely needed to be an accessible rear entrance or rear entrance exit, not only to access the playground area from the rear of the mansion and vice versa in the parking areas, but also to allow access to, well, playground and also this tent area, because we understand that this area is often used for tents, for overflow, for special events. And so the sensory garden initially was smaller. It was a smaller grant-funded space, but we realized very soon that it really needed to kind of wrap around and embrace the playground and interact with it and be part and parcel, be a seating area and be a really beautiful garden space that the kids and adults can enjoy at the same time. David, can you advance to the next slide? Oh. Okay, so just, okay, there we go. So looking a little bit at the details, so right now the historic structure has this brick terrace that's out front, right outside of the oval room there. And as we learned, the main entrance to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act needs to be the entrance that most people actually use when they come to a facility. And talking to the Friends, we learned that more often than not, people are entering, that's often a reception area when there are events here, and people are entering this way. Also, there was very little grade change. There's very little grade change there, so we're able to access it with just a little brick path. So we're cutting through an existing planting trying to be very subtle in the landscape and very respectful of the historic fabric. And then our comics is picking up and on the terrace and getting people up into the threshold with an accessibility there. And then on the rear of the mansion, the existing terrace will have a connection. We're proposing a connection that would be only about a slope, an angle of about less than 5%, which is just below what you need, or where you're required to use handrails, and it's below the definition of a ramp. So it's not a ramp, it's just a slightly sloped terrace extension that then goes out and connects to the walkway. The materials, we're still looking at potential materials. It could be a granite, or it could be decoratively scored concrete with a brick edge is what's being discussed right now. And then, if you go along the path further...
Let me just interrupt you 1 second. I know it's a small thing, but I think more time was spent trying to figure out how to get from the back door to that path. Any other thing, the slope, how wide it should be, what it should look like. But thanks to Denisha and friends, Laura and Teresa, and everybody involved, I think we got to the design we need.
Well, and thank you. And it also will provide a little bit of patio extension space for events, which the Friends had said from the very beginning would be a desirable thing to have. You know, it's not mandatory, but it will be multifunctional. So that is what we always strive to do. Okay, and then last but certainly not least will be the sensory garden. So you just saw Al Corsetti explained that this is where the playground layout will be. It is essentially in the same location as the existing playground, but it will be larger and shaped just a little bit differently. And so, and then around that is this sensory garden area, which will be probably a permeable paving surface. So water can infiltrate. It's like a pea gravel that has a coating that binds it together, so it is a fully accessible surface, and yet it has kind of a nice garden-esque look to it. It actually, this precedent photo is from the New York Botanical Garden native plant garden, where it's been really successfully used in recent years to much acclaim. And then the centerpiece of the sensory garden will be a little millstone water feature. And the millstone, this is a really beautiful touch that Laura came up with along the way, is we realized, well, we want a millstone, but there happens to already be one. It was at the entrance of the sunken garden right out here. And so it's been lifted and set in safekeeping to become the centerpiece of this water feature. So we're pleased with that development. And then around the edges, there will be, some of these will be at-grade beds, planting beds closest to the playground, here, and here, with benches. By the way, benches, I think there's a sponsorship program coming, so if you're interested in that, talk to the friends. And then on this outer perimeter, there will be low height, like seating height, planter walls with plantings inside, and then seating that will be located, so that we're trying to create plenty of seating for adults and children who might be gathered around the playground. And so, and this whole area is accessible, handicap accessible, wheelchair accessible, stroller accessible, walker accessible, you know, as the case may be. And then plantings, and I have to say, one of the amazing things about working on this project is that this is such a beautiful, it's not just a gem of the town, it's really a gem of the region, and the way it's maintained is really, really commendable. So I just want to be very complimentary about that. It's so nice to work on a project where you know people really care and really take care of it. So, and have the talents to do so. So, after this, we're happy to answer any questions. Did I miss anything, friends, or? You all right?
want to give another shout out to the friends, Dan, Marco, Laura, they can't even believe that everybody in the friends. They have such knowledge of plants and trees, and I love plants and trees, but I know nothing. When they say, this is what you should do, yes, we should do that. And I also want to compliment all of our professionals, consultants that we've chosen. Arconics, Corsetti, Denisha. They are really, really professional. You can see that standing up here. They were all chosen through the RFP process, and we're so lucky that we ended up with terrific professionals doing this project. I just want to, I said I'd do it, I want to acknowledge, I don't know who else is here, raise your, the not-for-profit groups, I know a lot of you have shown up. All right, and stand up and introduce yourselves. Go ahead. Starting from the front, go up the right side, and then...
Dale Mintz, and I represent SPRY, staying in place in Rye and its environs, helping the elderly stay in their homes.
Yes, good evening. I'm Luis Yumbla from the Latino Network of Portchester. Thank you for your attention.
I am Anna Kabelka. I'm the president of the Portchester Rye Brook Rotary.
Grace Colangelo, I'm the executive director of the Portchester Council for the Arts.
Well, on this side, what's his... So hands here.
Yeah. Good evening, I'm Tom Kistner. I'm the president of the Portchester Rye branch of the NAACP, and I'm also the president of a group called Sustainable Portchester Alliance.
Yes, good evening, everybody. My name is Mel Tansman. I'm the executive director of Westchester Disabled on the Move, which is an independent living center, not a residential place where people stay or where people get help. And I want to really compliment the town of Rye as well as the Friends of Crawford Park. Too often I'm there battling with people and threatening to bring in attorneys to get things accessible. And to see the town of Rye take this initiative is really heartwarming. So I thank you, and thank you for getting me involved.
I just also want Charlie.
I'm Charlie Sacker for the Knights of Columbus in Portchester.
This project serves not one, but two real purposes. One, obviously, is to make the park, and not just the mansion, the entire park, you can see the playground, etc. Everything that we do is with the idea that it has to be accessible to everyone. But in addition to accessibility, we want to make not only the park and especially the mansion available to the not-for-profit groups of the town of Rye. Sometimes, there are programs available. We're looking to, at this point, enlarge our universe of stakeholders. For the first time when this project is done, we're going to have a second floor that is accessible. We're going to have 4 rooms probably that are accessible. For what? For meetings, yes. For classes, language classes, art classes, dance classes. And I just want you all to know, I have spoken with the heirs of Edmund Crawford. The reason this park and this mansion was given to the town of Rye was because Edna Crawford looked out her back window and saw children playing in her fields, and it gave her joy. And that's the reason, and that's straight from her direct descendant. And that's the reason that it was given to the town of Rye, and that is the purpose that we need to follow here especially for the children, and that's one reason that we are so excited about this playground. We want children from all over to come and enjoy it when it's finished. Now, does anybody have any comments from the public? Please come up.
Yeah, I just have one question. Out of those 3 parking spaces,
No.
out of those 3
Please
handicap
come to the
parking
microphone.
spaces, I can't fit up the aisle.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see one. I'm sorry, I apologize.
Will one be van accessible?
Yes.
Because the van has a ramp and it needs
Tell
to
me
be
your name,
wider.
sir.
My name is Rob. I'm with Mel from Westchester Disabled.
But you are in the town. You're a resident.
Yeah, I'm here all the time. I read. I come in the summer to read.
I'm sorry, my niece was in front of me. No, as Anisha said, there are 3 now. There will be many more than 3 parking spaces.
Okay.
It is our plan, it's not fulfilled yet. You may have noticed that there used to be a fence, an additional fence that we used to call the corral, where there was a large container that park stuff was kept in. That container has been moved next to the rider container. We are going to make that additional parking because one thing that we know is not enough parking there. And there will be many more additional handicap spaces. There will be spaces on the other side of the pavilion, if I have anything to say about it, so that people can access the playing fields easily. And these 3 spaces, that's just on the drawing. There will be more than that. And
One more
I'm going to get to it later. There will also be...
It's a little off topic, but are dogs still allowed on a leash?
There was no change to the...
Okay, great.
Now at the end of our agenda is an item for we're applying for a grant to put an electric vehicle charging station here as well, keeping with our green theme. And as I say, there will be many more accessible spaces, and yes, there will be van accessible, absolutely. Anybody? Yes?
I just had one question. I just have one question. When you were showing the elevator, and you said that it would be accessible for egress, if there's a fire, what's the egress from the 2nd floor?
No, Gary explained that. Gary, want to?
We are
The secondary egress.
The secondary egress?
Correct, so we're incorporating an enclosed stair that'll bring you out from the 2nd floor directly to the outside.
Oh, okay. Okay, it works with the levels.
Yeah, the elevator is not a means of egress suitable in a fire.
Right, yeah, well, that was my point. Thank you.
Thank you. Just one second. I lost my one. Mel?
Yeah.
Mel, okay. Go, use it.
Okay. The issue of egress from the 2nd floor, if the elevator goes out, which may happen, when you're ready to open, many schools and other places have evacuation chairs where anybody can very easily, it has like tank treads on it, so it's able to go down the stairs so that a person who's in a wheelchair and is not able to negotiate stairs will be able to get out. I don't think they're that expensive, so I think it's something you should look at once the place is ready.
What's it called? An evacuation?
Evacuation chair.
Anybody else?
My question is for the gentleman with the presentation about the playground. When I was a boy, growing up in late 1940s, the school playground, the huge playground, crushed limestone gravel. So I really, really appreciate the board. My question is, what does this surface do after a rain?
It is, it's 100% permeable. The surface will be pitched at a very gentle slope of about 1%, allowing heavy deluges to roll off of it, but the remainder of the water will soak right through it.
Thank you.
And gravel may be
Trying to
tough.
think of everything. I'm sure we haven't thought of everything, but we're trying to think of it.
Gary, I thought maybe you put your plants out there with these easy questions. I thought maybe you put your plants out there with some easy questions. Gary, I thought you put your
No, Billy. I didn't know any of them were coming. Debbie had the invite list. Anybody else?
Can I say
Laura.
a few seconds? Hi, just a little bit.
So, Laura Klein, Friends of Crawford Park. And I just want to thank the town. I mean, this is just a pipe dream that we're finally getting a new playground and accessible walkways and, you know, much needed. I've been working with the town of Friends of Crawford Park for 12 years. And never thought this would happen, but now it's happening. I also want to thank Debbie so much because she has been like the driving force of roping it together and making sure that we're all coming to the meetings. And so she wasn't mentioned yet, so.
Okay, I was going to mention. Debbie has been fantastic, but I also want to thank two other people here from the town, Sarah Suma. Where's Sarah? And Brenda Valentine. Brenda and Sarah work in the supervisor's office. They are tremendous, and they pull a lot of our things together. And they're nice people, too. Debbie, I can't say enough about Debbie. She put this all together. She puts a lot of stuff together. She knows how much I appreciate her. Anybody else? Rick?
Good evening. Congratulations. Looks like a great plan. But I'm actually here asking a question based on one of my multiple non-paying jobs as the chair of the rec council in North Grove. My question is, there was nothing addressed as far as the use of the fields. And knowing Mr. Zuckerman is a past softball whiz, who probably did play on this field here from time to time, are there any plans to fix up the fields so that maybe some of the surrounding communities could get into that?
Next stage.
Next stage.
I'll
be back.
When I started to say something, and then the thought went out of my head, that's what I was going to talk about. Thank you, Rick.
Okay.
This is the first stage. We haven't really addressed the use of the 30 acres. And we're going to put together a larger committee. Friends, of course, will participate. Volunteers welcome. I'm going to reveal something. Debbie's going to shoot me for this. You're all aware of the fact, I hope, that at Rye Town Park, of which I am the president of the commission, has just engaged in a process with NYU School of Public Administration, Graduate School of Public Administration, and we have a capstone team assessing the needs of Rye Town Park. Debbie has already approached them, and we may be filing an application to bring a capstone study to Crawford Park. It's not for sure yet, right, Deb? But we're going in. We're definitely applying. And that will help us to determine what the residents of the town would like of their park. I think that this work was, what we're doing today was inspired by the fact that the prior board was able to get the Community Development Block Grant. So we have to do this stuff. And the next step is to look at what we will be doing with our fields. One of the things, and Rick, I'm glad you mentioned it. Judy Eisenberg, our grant writer, is here. One of the things that she's looking at is a grant to repair the ball field. And Major League Baseball has money for that. And they require a larger than a hope for town contribution. That's one of the things. But it is our intention to sit down with the Portchester and Rybrook, and if necessary, the Mamaroneck athletic departments, Parks and Recreation, to find out if there's a need for the field and what. Personally, I don't know, and I don't think anybody sitting up here knows, if the best use of that field is for baseball or softball, soccer, football, lacrosse. One of the ideas that I had was to put a temporary ice skating rink in for the winter time. Not a large one, but prohibitively expensive. That one didn't fly. But those are the kinds of things, and I don't know the answer. None of the five of us sitting up here knows it. The community knows the answer as to what it would like this park to become. We have a lot of land. We have programs now inside, music programs. Maybe we can do outdoor music concerts and provide a venue. May require leveling the fields or doing something else with the grading. All of those things are to come, but it will be up to the community to decide what that will be. Does that answer your question? Thank you. Anybody else? Council.
I just have a question, I guess, because we're doing such a major project, and we obviously want this to last. As far as the walkways that are being used throughout, my first, I guess, concern would be the brick and what the expected life of that would be, the brick pathway and the maintenance of it.
Well, I don't think we're considering brick, right?
No.
That's not in it. That's not in it.
It was the edging. We were considered for the edging, not for the pathway itself. Right?
So the only brick pathway would be about 25 or 30 feet from this brick terrace that's right up this way to the parking. So it's, it's 25 feet of brick pathway. And that was chosen because there's already the existing brick there. And it would be just a more historically friendly as opposed to, a concrete walk. We looked at various materials for the full length of the walk from the parking area to the playground, but that one is going to be a concrete sidewalk. The length, the expense, the long-term maintenance, so on and so forth. And then the connection from the concrete walkway to the rear terrace here. What we're looking at is doing, in the bid documents, putting an add alternate in so that it might be concrete with just that brick edge, and that's to tie the materials in together with, there's brick on that back terrace right now. So it would be just like a little nice touch. And then there's also an add-on that might be a granite. So, and that's very durable, but it might come into expensive. So those are the things that are being discussed.
We're trying to see what color that granite is, because I was going to get a power washer and do a small section, but we ended up getting the snow. So that kind of did everything. But I'm going to get a power washer, and I'm going to power wash a section of it, because I have a sample, and then she gave me a sample of granite. So we're going to try to see if it's pretty close, and if it is, then find out what that would be an add-on on the project.
How many council members not only come to meetings, but they already power wash them?
And I also, just in keeping with what Mr. Gianfrancisco said, he kind of alluded to the heritage of the building. and the era it was built in, when we look at fixtures, because you did mention the LED lights, etc. When we look at fixtures, are we going to be looking at sort of more historically fitting fixtures, and is that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
One more question. Will there be lighting? It's too vibrant.
Slow it down.
Will there be lighting at the around the sensory garden and the playground for children to use in the evening when it starts to get dark, or no?
No, because the park closes in the evening. It closes at sundown.
Oh, okay.
So, no, they won't.
Nobody's supposed to be allowed in it.
I need to disagree with you.
Well, that's it.
Right off the park.
She's going to sneak
Say
in.
you want it.
Power from her meter.
So is she dark?
Listen, we made the playground a little bit larger so that the adults can join the children. Anybody else on the council wish to comment at this point? So, all right, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Yes, Lindsay, go ahead.
One more thing, I think that as we move forward, since we are putting a lot of resources into the improvements in the park and a lot of effort from throughout the community, going forward in our budget, I think we should be looking at setting aside funds for the continuation and the maintenance.
No, we will. And in fact, as part of this, our controller, Baby Burns, is here. We've been talking about, whatever financial impact there would be and how to do it, and do it in a way that's most favorable to the taxpayers, obviously. So, there is a cost to all this, but I think we all feel that it's worth it in the end.
Just don't want us to get to where we do this beautiful project and then years down the road it.
Well, that'll be for another council.
Yes.
We entrust them. Right, I just wanted to mention one thing before we close. All of these plans, if they're not now, will be on our website. And already on our website, Gary Gianfrancesco, our comics, has a booklet of the code and handicap accessibility, what do you call it, a review? I forgot what we call it, a review? What's the title of the
ADA and building code compliance measures.
Right. It looks at the structure today and what needs to be done to make it code compliant and ADA handicap compliant. And that's already on the website. Okay. With that, yes, Joyce.
Can you announce to the public what the timeline of the project will be for people at home who might want to rent the mansion for their event, and when they can expect to be able to use it?
Well, let's start with the pavilion. As Gary mentioned, we're hoping that the pavilion will be complete by June 1st, so that we can continue to book, and we can book even without that. If we have an event, we can have portable bathroom facilities if necessary. The playground and accessory and sensory garden should be completed, I would think, in around the same time. Al, about 3 months we need? So
Approximately 3 months.
Yeah.
Yes.
Certainly around July for both of them. And why is that important? It's not only using it, but obviously because they're going to be constructing along the back of the mansion for the path, etc. So as for the mansion itself, we expect to have plans ready, hopefully by the end of May, and get ready to do our bidding, our construction bids. And Gary would answer that better than I, but he is shooting for completion before the end of the year. That's what he's shooting for. I'm hoping that can happen. And so we have, for everybody's knowledge, anybody who wants to rent the mansion is advised that there may be construction So when you rent it, you have to take note of that. We don't expect actually that that'll interfere with a lot of the activities of the mansion, because aside from the doors and the windows that are going to be replaced, most of the construction will be for the elevator, the bathrooms, and of course upstairs, which is not being used now, so it's not going to affect any events. So we're hopeful that there will be minimal interference, but we are continuing to rent the facility, and we hope to continue that with the advisory that there may be a problem from time to time. The exact that we're not closing the mansion, we're not shutting it down and saying you can't rent it, but we are advising that there may be construction. Am I correct in that, Debbie? Is that?
Is there something written?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Something written.
Okay, that will complete this presentation. I want to thank our consultants. Everybody's invited to stay for the rest of the meeting. We have some very nice and important stuff on the agenda. It's very exciting in some ways. especially
Very.
2 minutes.